Eva Worthing, City Councilwoman for the 9th Ward, and this is Kate Fields, my colleague, City Councilwoman in the 4th Ward. The voices of at least 2 councilpersons in the city are deliberately being silenced by Finance Chair Eric Mays. Mays is abusive to us and abuses his position as Finance Chair almost every time he convenes a meeting. The Council President, Herb Winfrey, appointed Mr. Mays and can remove him as Chair, but to date, he has refused to do so and has allowed this unacceptable behavior to continue unabated. At the water hearing last evening, Mr. Mays repeatedly tried to remove us, as well as 7th Ward Councilperson Monica Galloway, for no reason other than he didn't want us to be able to speak and was effectively muzzling us. We had broken no rules and had violated no codes of conduct. He would give us the floor, and as we would begin to speak, he would immediately interrupt us and prevent us from speaking. He monopolized the hearing conversation contrary to the accepted role of a chair. He also used parliamentary techniques incorrectly and in an improper manner. Mr. Mays is not only an incompetent chairperson, but he also engages in harassment via intimidation and threats, racial slurs, and he shouts and cowers over us in a threatening manner. This statement is an attempt to bring attention to this unacceptable behavior and to inform our constituents that your representatives are not allowed to have a voice for you. We are asking you, city residents and our constituents, to stand up with us and demand that this behavior be stopped. Please contact the Council President, Herb Winfrey, and the City Attorney, Angela Wheeler, and let your opinions be known. Now we would like to share with you some questions that we would have liked to ask AECOM last night if we had been allowed to.
Hello. I want to note that since last night's hearing just had AECOM there, I'm only listing those questions some of the questions that we would have liked to have asked AECOM. There are additional questions we'd like to ask of many other people, but since last night's hearing we were prevented from asking questions, these were for AECOM. 1. It's very apparent from the predictive model maps that AECOM is not using the most effective methods to identify and remove lead service lines. Who specifically made the decision to change city policy on these methods, which resulted in a 71% hit rate initially, to the method that you are now using, which has less than a 20% hit rate? The hit rate, of course, is finding lead and galvanized lines. Did AECOM make this decision? Did Mayor Weaver or someone in her administration make that decision? Who specifically is the responsible party? Because it's apparent it's a very bad decision. Is there any documentation or correspondence that verifies who and when this decision was made and why? We may have to FOIA for that information. Why would you waste our valuable funds and resources to prioritize and concentrate on excavations in areas that are predicted to have copper lines? That makes no sense. Number 2, what specific tasks or work do the following companies provide for AECOM on behalf of Flint projects? Can you please provide proof of competitive solicitations and procurement that you used to hire these companies listed in slide 7 of your presentation? And slide 7 have the companies below, and I'll read this. Also, please provide the contracts and copies of all invoices that you used to compile these numbers in your presentation. According to AECOM, the company DLC has billed to date from May to September $166,910. ARCO has billed $660,000 plus from May through September. E-Holdings over $177,000. The total through September, from May to September, is over $1 million. The questions are, what specific expertise do Sam Cox and Martin Kruger from ARCO Systems provide to AECOM? that AECom does not already possess. Their invoices mostly state consulting at the rate of $303 an hour. Question 4, who is the individual and job title position that is in charge of hiring your subcontractors? Have you ever been directed by Mayor Weaver or someone in her administration to hire any particular or specific company? If so, by whom? Number 5, who is the individual and job title position that verifies work, that all work done is eligible for reimbursement from state and federal grants? Last question. Who is the individual and job title position that is in charge of hiring your subcontractors? The first step in an investigation is to find out who is responsible for what. So that would be the first series of questions. And once you have answers to that, then you know you have the right person to continue asking questions of under oath. So those are just some of the questions we would like to ask AECom. Unfortunately, we never got the opportunity. Thank you. Any questions?
I have one. Are the concerns you have, are they related to just general qualifications of the contractors, or just for specific tasks that they're performing in regards to pipe replacement?
Well, number one, I'm concerned that some proper procurement occurred from AECom to these subcontractors, because that's $5 million of grant funds that we're paying AECom that they subsequently are paying other companies. We have no proof of what type of procurement they did. I actually have FOIA'd that in the past, and they did not give me proof of solicitation of the city. They did not give me proof of a contract. So when you look and you add up this $1 million from May to September of the city's money, I'd like to know who these companies are and exactly what they've been doing. What tasks are they providing? Because that $1 million, if that's not necessary tasks, it can be used for more infrastructure work. So you have to dig into the details, and that's part of what we want to know.
Are you more concerned that money is being wasted, or something a bit more nefarious?
Either or, we don't know. Our job is to ask questions and to provide some fiduciary responsibility, fiscal responsibility, to understand and know where the money is going and how it's being used.
Did you deliver these questions also to AECom?
Not yet.
But you plan on it?
I guess so. We can mail them to them. I don't know if they're going to show up at a hearing again. And even if they did, I don't know if we would be allowed to have a voice to ask them questions in a hearing, because we certainly weren't allowed to do that last night. Any other questions?
When you say you weren't allowed, can you expand on that? I mean, the council has rules under the charter. How can you say you're not allowed?
Mr. Mays was chairing. He does not follow the rules. As chair, he breaks the rules. When we tried to speak, he would interrupt us. He would give us the floor and then immediately interrupt us. Couldn't even get 2 consecutive words out. And then he just arbitrarily started deciding that he was going to try to remove myself, Ms. Worthing, and Ms. Galloway. Although the only reason for removal is if you have disorderly conduct or if you've broken a rule. We had broken no rules. So his attempts to just have us removed out of the meeting for no reason is basically an attempt to muzzle us and to keep us from speaking. Now, I don't know why he doesn't want us asking our particular questions. I don't know if he doesn't want us to participate at all, or just doesn't want us to ask questions. I'm not sure what's in his head.
You mentioned Councilwoman Galloway. Was she invited to be in this with you and decline, or not available, or?
She wasn't able to be here. I don't know if what her schedule is.
How confident are you? The letter says that you're hoping, you both hope to get him removed as chair. How confident are you that
timing is quite interesting. This is the last finance meeting, regular committee finance meeting before we have elections on council, and the new president will choose the finance chairs. So I don't know, it depends on Mr. May's behavior. If he indulges in the same type of behavior, will have a motion to a vote of no confidence and to have him removed immediately as chair. If he behaves himself and follows the rules, then I suppose the next step would be for the new president to make that decision.
What do you say to people who live here who they just want to work in city council and they're just not seeing that? What do you say to them?
You know what? That's something we'd really like to see as well. But the thing is, when you are being abused, you have a choice to just accept the abuse or to stand up for yourself. And we are going to stand up for ourselves. So if some who are not on council, who don't really understand the rules of parliamentary procedure, they think that somehow this is our fault when we object to him breaking the rules, you know, what you're doing is you're blaming the victims. We're simply trying to stand up for ourselves and for the women on the council.
Also, I would like to add that our city attorney has not stood up for the women on the council and the behavior by Mr. Mays. And also, I was pretty disappointed yesterday that when Mr. Mays was silencing Kate, several of us made the choice to leave. It's wrong to silence a colleague. And the fact that there was still quorum is concerning to me because we are in this together. We're supposed to run the city together. And we should be standing together when there's abuse of the chair. And to me, it's unacceptable behavior, and we really need our constituents to come to the council meetings and voice that opinion, because their voices are being silenced. If we can't ask our questions, we can't represent our constituents. Unfortunately, many of them choose not to come because meetings will last 8 to 10 hours, and the abuse is happening. And it's really tough to stomach. It's really hard to listen to the swearing, the belligerence, and the rudeness. And so many people do not come. And so we just need those constituents to brave it. And then also I would suggest they talk to the mayor. She has not stood up against this type of behavior. And I really would like to see a statement from her that says she does not condone this and that it's inappropriate.
For clarity, I just want to be clear. Do you both believe that treatment exists because you two are women or because, yeah?
The abuse will happen no matter what sex you are. However, I do believe there is sexism in play and that it happens most frequently with the women on council.
Take us back to that moment yesterday when you guys both left. What was going through your thoughts while you left?
My thoughts were this hearing is a farce. I've given up my time to come here. I have prepared questions. I do a lot of research. In fact, I'm very well prepared for our meetings and for the hearings, etc. And Mr. Mays was not letting me have a voice at that meeting. That meeting was a farce. That hearing was a farce. So there was no need for me to continue to be there and continue to be abused and bullied by Mr. Mays. It's unacceptable.
And once again, I wish that our colleagues would have followed. I just think that you have to choose right from wrong. And if one of our colleagues is being silenced, then we should all leave in solidarity until that situation is rectified. We need a new chair, or we need the behavior to be corrected. And it's not. There was no removal of the chair. Our president had left the meeting. He did not address any of the behavior. And so there are a lot of concerns that we have. It's not right. If my colleague cannot ask her question, then any one of us could be subjected to that treatment. And it's wrong. And so I would hope that this would not continue in the future.
Thank you all for coming.
curious as to see what would be said. I've heard what's been said here today. It is a fact that on Monday we vote for reorganization. So I see some political motivation here from two council persons who just don't have leadership positions. When you look at the way we got here, Ms. Worthing in the primary had about 89 votes. Scott Kincaid had a debacle. He ran for mayor. She's legally seated. Ms. Fields, when I look at her vote count, you can double it, and it does not reflect my vote count. I've been elected by the residents of the first ward, and I support the mayor. The mayor doesn't have a technical role in our proceedings as it relates to our rules. I've heard Ms. Fields and Ms. Worthing give this media inaccurate accounts of what's happening. I've been called a racist by Ms. Fields in a public meeting. It's a personal attack. It's against our rules. Last night, review the tape. She called me a bully. It's a personal attack. I gave her her first warning. I will not tolerate a breaking of the rules as it relates to personal attacks. When she called me a racist, I said, I don't know if you're a racist or not, but you sure is Eric Macist. And then spread it all across the city of Flint. That's the term I attribute to those who attempt to attack me. They're Macists. I don't know if they're racist, but it seems as though race is a factor. Last night, if you review the tape, Ms. Worthing, who seems to be, well, she is white, Ms. Fields, who was white, and Mr. Griggs, who was white. They got out, they walked out of the meeting. Nobody put them out. As a matter of fact, when she broke the rules, and I can share the council rules with you, and made the personal attacks in front of the public and the media as it relates to this chairman, I gave her her first warning. My job as chairman is to prioritize the business. We had a economy. Their time, just like mine, and Ms. Worthing and Ms. Fields, time is valuable. My duty, the council rules gives me a duty to prioritize the business. The business at hand was to ask questions of the witnesses, not make statements, not give theories. As a matter of fact, if you look at the agenda, I said before we even started, it's been on every agenda. The council, we developed the rules as a group of 5 or more. I think what Ms. Worthing and Ms. Fields' frustration is as we go into the Monday reorganizational meeting, they want leadership positions, and they might not have the votes. And so, now, after they voted, the record would show they voted not to have this hearing. But when the majority voted to have the hearing and we started to proceed with the hearing, seemed like they are on a witch hunt, or they want the hearing to go the way they want it to go. And it's only 2 of them, they're not the majority. The decisions that we make is 5 or more, and they seem to be frustrated, and now they stoop low to make personal attacks. I'm a no-nonsense type of council person, a no-nonsense type of chairperson. I'm a Christian person. Ms. Fields, I don't know. She might not have the same beliefs. And I don't like to hear people stand in front of the media and make false accusations and outright lies. They said they have not broken any rules. In fact, they did. I've told you about the rules of personal attacks. I've alluded to the duty I have as a chair to keep stuff prioritized and focused. Ms. Worthing repeatedly used points of order, points of information, They could have asked questions last night had they stayed. They left, and then the five of us proceeded to ask questions. Rather than ask questions, the tape would show when I called on Ms. Fields, she was more concerned with arguing with me. And so I went to Mr. Gary. I have no time for that. If you look at Ms. Fields and Ms. Worthy's attendance records from the time they were elected last year in November to now, Ms. Fields has the worst attendance records. Attendance is important because for you to know what's going on, to ask the proper questions and to participate, you need to be here. When we looked at the attendance for Ms. Fields from November to June, the records reflect the most, 35 absences. From November to June, I think Ms. Worthy, 13 to 16, some double-digit figure. Mr. Davis, Maurice Davis, had 0, and I had 2. And what I noticed as a chair, repeatedly, worse attendance records, missing details, and then coming in grandstanding, making accusations and personal attacks like what you just witnessed here today. As far as the questions that she had or has, if they stay in a meeting, don't make personal attacks. And even when they do make personal attacks, they'll still be given the opportunity. So you gotta be here. You can't be asked to participate. And you just heard from the council person presently who has the worst attendance record of all. Now, as far as what they alluded to Monday in leadership and votes of no confidence from the council and trying to pressure the president and the finance chair and anybody else, have them put a motion on the floor. They don't have to try to be council persons in press conferences. They don't have to call on the people who voted us in. I guess they're calling on certain people to show up. We've got plenty of people who can show up. The mayor, myself, and others. They're struggling with some internal politics of not being able to put 5 votes together for leadership. And I don't think that's going to change. Do you have any questions?
What's your reaction to them then saying, and you sort of just alluded to it, but them saying he silenced them?
I've not silenced them. I've done my duty to prioritize the business, keep them on track. Everybody gets an opportunity to speak when they stay in the meetings. You've got to be here to participate. I think the closest I can come to that they're alluding to, ma'am, is that if they're off point, I have a duty to try to bring them back. I like to use the word latitude. As a chair, I'll give you latitude, and I'll try to give you time to make your point. As a chair, if the priority to ask questions of witnesses, I don't need you making statements and giving opinions. We can do that after the witnesses leave. When the witnesses is here, their time is valuable, whether they're from the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, AECOM, whether it's the mayor and her administration. Make your speeches and talks after we deal with the first priority. The first priority is to question witnesses. We'll make conclusions and give speeches after the witnesses is gone. And so you can look at the tape and you can see me saying, stop with the speeches, stop with the long talks, ask the questions. Ms. Fields snuck an item on the agenda last night. If you look at the written agenda, it had something about identifying property owner or addresses with Kate Fields' name. Ms. Fields didn't have permission under our the behavior of Ms. Fields and Ms. Worth. But what can you do? I've experienced that same behavior with Carrie Nelson, Vicki Van Buren, Scott Kincaid, Jackie Poplar, and others. We have a majority good council, and they're highlighting themselves as a problem, and I think we'll correct it eventually. Any more questions?
What about their charges of sexism?
Yeah, I've heard charges of sexism, racism pointed toward me, and they say the women on the council, but they're not the only women on the council. You've got Jerry Winfrey Carter, you've got Monica Galloway. They don't like for you to say black, white. I'm gonna talk black and white from now to the time I die. They don't like for you to say male, female. They don't really know the rules. They're not sharp on the rules, and then they accuse us of violating the rules. And I can show you on tape and the record, they don't know the rules. And so I say ignorance is no excuse. And so how do you deal with it? How do you deal with it? You got public officials standing, publicly making charges that I'm a racist, that I don't do good with women. I do very good with Mayor Weaver. I do very good with Jerry Winfrey Carter. I do very good with thousands of women on the north side who votes for me. But these two women that happen to be on the council, who got the worst attendance records, who don't understand council rules, who wants to argue with authority, we end up here. And we end up here on the eve of reorganization. I think they're a little frustrated. Maybe they want to be president, finance chair, vice president. I don't think they have the votes. And with their behavior, I just don't think they'll make it.
We've seen you yell, we've seen them yell back at you. We've heard you once before mention they take the low road, I take the low road. Why not take the high road?
I don't take a high road. I will cuss, I will fuss, you will hear me cuss, you will hear me fuss, you will hear me say damn, you will hear me say hell, you'll see me react to foolishness. When Michelle Obama made a speech politically, as it relates to Donald Trump and that campaign, she said to Hillary, in reference to Hillary, when they go low, we go high. That's Michelle Obama. Councilman Mays takes a different tack politically. When they go low, I go low with them, and sometimes lower. Now, I went high when she called me a racist. I said, I don't know if you racist, but you sure is racist. And that's a high road for me. I could have said, I thank you, racist white lady, but I didn't do that. So I went high. I've used every type of tack with these two. These two are a handful, and we'll handle it.
Why not work to unionize or
Unify.
all these council members?
This is November. I've tried it for a year. They're never here. They got the worst, I'm not going to say never here. They have the worst attendance record. They don't understand the rules. The chairperson is the interpreter of the rules. I've entertained their appeals. They lost some and won some. Look at the meeting last night. I said to the officer, get them out of here, remove them. And guess what? They appealed, I entertained the appeal. The majority of the council voted for them and they didn't get put out. I voted to put them out because that's what I had ruled. And so I'm asking my council colleagues, I've been put out of 2 meetings, walked out, and maybe I deserved it. But before you remove a council person from their seat, you've got to give them due process. When I was removed by Carrie Nelson, as I've appealed and they ignored it. I got $4,500. I was put out of this meeting. It's still ripe for lawsuit. Check the tape. I said I appealed the ruling of the chair. The same thing that they did last night, and I let them know. I could call the sheriff and don't give you due process. I entertained the second to the motion. They second each other's motion. Kate feels an evil word and they lose more than they win. And they might be frustrated. So the question ain't to me, why can't we work with them? We've tried. We've been over backwards. Now the question would be to them, why don't they settle down and do their job? Attend meetings, stay for meetings, and participate.